Muhammad Rafi, and here is my YouTube channel, Zameen Universal. It will be a day in my life that I will see the extreme of cruelty. As a youngster, I heard about the cruelest dictators, the cruelest prime ministers, cruelest leaders in Europe, especially Hitler, Pharaoh, and some of the cruelest in Christians, and most of all in Hindus, in India, and the list of butchers, the list of the criminals, the war criminals, the baby killers, killers of women, elderly and wounded, killing them by starvation, killing them by dehydration, killing them by stopping and destroying the hospitals, the health services, the schools, the libraries. Everything in the book which makes a war crime and breaks the rules of war, we had read that it has been done. Some 10%, some 20%, some 30%. But the current Gaza siege for 17 years and occupation and squeezing, building 3 boundary walls, barbed wires, then concrete walls, then the IDFs, then the dogs, then the rascals, then the alcoholics, the womanizer, the scum of the society brought in and forcibly settled in small pieces, and inch by inch they engulfed and swallowed the whole of Palestine, where they came naked, barefoot, sunken eyes as refugees in 1940s. Imagine now at the rhetoric they are making and the courage, so you can understand what kind of people, what kind of population these are. You would never find any other nations whose graves are dug and they are spitted upon than you will find in the Jewish. So there has to be something wrong with this, group which controls 90% of the wealth of the whole world, and then charge interest, compound interest, and like vampires sucks the blood of every individual, especially the poor, and then gives them money and keeps them under debt, finances the war on both sides, pays for the war arsenal to both the who conquers and is winning and the one who is losing. And ever since this nation came into existence, you can see that what they have done and what kind of a treacherous and dirty history they had. 3,000 years of histories of Jews, you will find times and times again that they've been expelled and they have been hated, and at the current genocide going on in Gaza. And see the women now, 2024, protesting, not letting the humanitarian aid go into those starving people stuck with famine because they stopped water, they stopped food, they stopped medicine, they stopped electricity because they think they are animals. And they don't only think. I show you the faces of those dirty rascals who call them that they are animals and we must get rid of them, push them out of where they came as refugees. They want to push the actual owners of Palestine, instead of being grateful and thankful And look at these women, they think that by doing this, they will have their kith and kin. Instead of getting from the collar the man responsible for all this, that dirty, filthy devil Netanyahu and his war council, and getting rid of him in whatever ways they can, whether it is vote of no confidence, whether by defeating him in elections or by pulling him and putting him in jail because of his corruption. And once that is done, the whole world will breathe and have a sigh of relief. Imagine the food and the oil and the old trade, almost 50% of the world economy and trade stopped because of this one little devil called Netanyahu and his war council. And see what's happening in Red Sea. There wouldn't be any war. There wouldn't be any involvement of United States, Great Britain, Europe. There wouldn't be any attacks by Houthi. There's only one and only one condition. Cease fire and provide humanitarian aid. Rebuild Gaza. Let them live in peace, and you yourself live in peace. You had, I think, cached Holocaust, which is based on bunch of, I think, exaggerated stories. If there was 1% people who were burned in incinerator and gas chambers, you multiplied with 1 million and you made it 10 million. So this figure of 10 million is not only questionable, I think it's a bag of lies. Rotten lies. Or you have squeezed enough dollars from Germany and made Germany feel guilty and to pay you because you felt and you played with their conscience. So you did with their deposits in Switzerland banks, and you policed and you squeezed billions of dollars from there as well. Until today, you are not satisfied. And look at your women who are stopping the aid at the borders. Now, on one side is this tragedy, whether it is the International Criminal Court of Justice, whether it is the United Nations, your main master who feeds you like a puppy dog and has kept you alive for 75 years, the United States of America, the greatest terrorist on earth, and your first Prime Minister Begin, the one who created this and gave birth to this illegitimate child, assisted by British and by the Americans. You should be ashamed. Look back into your collar when you came as a refugee. Look back at those pictures of barefoot with your knees and small, thin thighs showing up, starved, thrown out of Europe by Adolf Hitler. And what fault is this of these people?
The world is watching a famine develop in Gaza that could kill many times more than the 24,000 Palestinians who've already perished in Israel's merciless blitzkrieg. By early February, if nothing changes, more than 500,000 people could be in a catastrophic state of hunger. These are not the projections of the Palestinian Health Ministry, dismissed by much of the European media as Hamas run, but by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, drawing on data from UN agencies and NGOs. Of course, the US, Britain and Germany is doing much more than just watching a humanitarian catastrophe develop in Gaza. They're actively feeding the Israeli military machine, which is creating it. Yediot Ahronot, an Israeli newspaper with good government sources, reported that since the 7th of October, the US has sent 230 cargo planes and 20 ships filled with artillery shells, armoured vehicles and combat gear. Much of this gear is going through the British airport of RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, which is only 40 minutes flying time from Tel Aviv. This quantity of arms is at odds with American rhetoric, which, by the way, America is good at. Asked by the New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman whether Muslim and Christian lives were worth less than Jewish lives, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken responded in a voice cracked with emotion.
No. Period. For me, I think for so many of us, What we're seeing every single day in Gaza is gut-wrenching. And the suffering we're seeing among innocent men, women, and children breaks my heart. The question is, what is to be done?
He deserves an Oscar for his performance. What is to be done? Blinken asks. How about calling for an immediate ceasefire, which after 13 weeks of bombing, the US still refuses to do? How about stopping the supply of US shells and bombs? How about backing the South African claim that this is genocide, or at the very least war crimes? Israel's bombing of Gaza has been so intense that it has been on the verge of running out of ammo. Israel has dropped almost 30,000 bombs and shells on Gaza in 100 days, 8 times more than the US dropped on Iraq in 6 years of war. It's even worse than that. Blinken is supplying Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, with the weapons he needs to defy US policy for a two-state solution. Splits are now emerging in Israeli war cabinet. Gabi Eisenkot said that an absolute defeat of Hamas was now impossible, clashing with Netanyahu, who says that the war will continue until Hamas has collapsed. Meanwhile, Haaretz quoted an anonymous source in the war cabinet saying that the current war in Gaza had no purpose other than to postpone the reckoning that Netanyahu will face for the Hamas attack on October the 7th. And Blinken is helping him do that? It's unbelievable. But that is where US support for this murderous war has now landed it. It's supporting an Israeli premier who's openly sabotaging US interests. But neither the US nor the UK have borders with Gaza. The one nation that does have a ringside seat to the famine unfolding inches from its border is Egypt. It bears direct responsibility for the current siege of Gaza, which is far more brutal than at any period during the last 16 years. Egyptian journalists staging an impromptu demonstration outside the headquarters of the Journalists Syndicate in Cairo were correct when they said Egypt is a partner in this siege. The Zionists are in control of us. For as long as Arab blood is cheap, down, down, down with any president. Mandela's children did it, and we are cowardice, shame, and humiliation. We want the crossing open, the journalists chanted. The same message is now being delivered by children, taunting Egyptian troops on the border fence. They say that Egypt is the mother of the world. Have you ever seen a mother leaving her children alone? They are all gone. God is enough for us, one said. One side of the fence, there are more than 60,000 Palestinians in urgent need of medical treatment. Some are dying in ambulances waiting for permission to cross the border. On the other side, there's a silent queue of ambulances and aid trucks. Egyptian officials think nothing of giving contradictory figures about the numbers of Palestinians that are actually going through Rafah. The Egyptian Ministry of Health claimed last month to be treating 20,000 Palestinians, while the State Information Service this month said that the true number was 1,210. Israel has no qualms about throwing Egypt under a bus over the situation at Rafah. Its defence team at The Hague, where Israel is accused of genocide by South Africa, accused Cairo of being responsible for preventing the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. This sparked a furious response from Egypt, who said that Rafah was under Israeli control. The truth is that for decades now, nothing, overground at least, goes.
My son was kidnapped 95 days ago. He is sick, he has a colitis disease, and his stress situation is getting severe. I know he needs us to take him out. We are going to stop the trucks because it's supposed to be humanitarian for humanitarian. It can't be only one side. Take out the hostages.
They get all the help, all the humanitarian. I'm okay with that, okay? They need to get food, okay? But my father-in-law need also get medicines, get food, and we don't know anything about them, and we don't, no one went there and to see them, to photo them, to see if they're okay. Nothing, no Red Cross, nothing.
לא יכול להיות שחיילים שלנו צריכים לשמור על החוליות שלהם. עוצרים אותי. באמת.
I wanted to ask this to send underwater, but I'll ask you, but I'd ask you to send this to underwater too. How would you feel if you were someone in this position and your tax money was used for a purpose you didn't want to support? How would you feel if your loved ones were taken away and your land was bombed? You would help. You would want help, wouldn't you? So all that's happening in Palestine, if this happened to you and you were stuck there forever, knowing that one day if you didn't get help, you die. If now you're in this spot, wouldn't you want to do that to other people? I wanted to say that I wouldn't believe that anyone in the world would do to me a very cruel thing to anyone, because we're the
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें। उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर